Oh,
Damn.
all right. Speaking of hands getting cut off is a little bit of a diversion. I saw two black dudes have a machete fight today at a gas station.
Oh, I saw that
Not with
video.
my own eyes, but on the internet. And
Yeah.
they both got up. I saw the after. Like one of them's head is like split open, but one dude gets his hand literally chopped off in the fight, like it's Game of Thrones. Like, dude cut the other guy's hand off, and then the guy's got no hand. He's got a stump for where where his wrist ends, and he retreats a little, and then the winner, clearly because he has two hands, he's like, yeah, motherfucker, and like walks off. And then dude, the loser, runs back in and grabs his own hand because he's gonna need that for later,
That's good. Yeah, he's still got his wits about him.
Well, you better hurry, by the way. You got like probably 10 minutes to get to the
He
hospital.
sauntered to that hand.
Yeah, I know. I saw the video too. He was meandering. But I've always wondered that. You see that in London with all the Pakistanis and the Muslim refugees, and they're always fighting with machetes. And I never understood that. Like, what is a machete fight? How does it last more than 1 second? Like, I get you anywhere in your body and you're toast.
These guys I saw the after of these guys, and they were cut open everywhere. They were like, but they weren't like deep enough to get to like vital organs. You'd have to hit like a blood vessel, like a jugular, or like their, femoral in their groin or something. But it's mostly their hands. Obviously, that guy lost his fucking hand. I've never seen that before. I've never seen that before.
I assume that there's only one video of these two guys machete fighting outside of a mobile on the run, which is what I'm watching right now. And so I had to watch it twice because so early in the fight, that guy gets his hand cut off, and then he's the guy winning. It's not even it's not his blade hand, as they
it's his
call
offhand.
It's his offhand.
Did he block with it? Is that how he lost?
Yeah, he had it up.
You believe it or not, Woody, that's like day one of sword fighting class.
This is machete fighting. We have different rules.
Oh my god,
dude didn't have his shield for some.
And you're right, Kyle. This guy walks back over to pick his discarded hand up, like as though he's more embarrassed about the fact that he lost his hand than he is worried about the imminent problems that are going to come from having a hand cut off in a machete fight.
Do we know
he's got a good
about
surgeon
his
nearby.
current status?
Yeah, I saw a clip.
They probably sew the hand back on and then took him to jail, right? Like, you can't have machete fights outside of gas
mutual
stations.
combat, as far as
Big
I'm
boys do what
concerned.
they
Look,
want.
if two men show up and both of them just happen to have machetes, like, come on. This was mutual combat. They both agreed to this. I don't see why anybody would go to jail.
Ooh, what is that term called? Mutually agreed combat?
Like
I've heard
dueling?
it before.
Like a legal
back
duel.
to the know
Like a
nothing
legal
guy.
duel.
Yeah,
You ever heard of mutual combat?
No. I forgot the exact term of it. There's a term where,
okay.
like, legally, where you can both agree to combat, and it's not even against the law. It's not
Well,
everywhere.
It's a good law because you're fighting with your brother and you're half kidding, and maybe the play fighting got carried away, but it's not a big deal, and you were not jumped by anyone. This is your twin brother, and you should be able to say to the cops, no, this isn't what you think it is. We were arguing about Pepsi. But the Proud Boys, Max and John, they did 4 years for fighting Antifa. It couldn't have been more mutual combat. Antifa said, do you want to go? And they said, yes. And then the cops said to Antifa, do you want to press charges? And the Antifa said, fuck you, pig. I just got punched 70 times. Where were you? Which is how they say no.
Yeah.
And that's so the cops went, all right, out of my hands. I'm going to go now.
And the Antifa guy didn't go to jail? Just the Proud Boys?
No, they weren't identified.
I think you should be able to square off. I honestly think dueling isn't a bad idea. I like the idea, especially the old gentlemanly duels where, like, we're going to shoot our guns in the air. This was just but you slap somebody in the face, have a duel tomorrow at noon. I like that. I think we should still do that.
Can you imagine the diarrhea you'd have the night before? You have to go to a duel. I'm not eating dinner that night. I'm just sitting on the bowl, just exploding. I'm not sleeping that night either.
No, you'd be so tired going into your life-determining duel.
You'd be so weakened from the diarrhea and the no sleep. I remember even in school in the 80s, it was pretty common. Like, you're going to fight, Clinton Badecki by the abandoned baseball diamond. And you're like, when? Now? Because that's a bummer. But no, tomorrow after school. And you're like, that's in 1 million years.
I have so much time to fear before then.
I've been in that situation a couple of times. It's awful. Like, just the butterflies in your belly all day long. For me, it was at the bike racks. Like, at the bike racks, they're going to be waiting for you. Well, darn.
Shit, that's where my bike is.
Yeah, right. Like, what, I'm going to not go there? I'm going to walk home?
Or did you ever get like like Barry Pueblo's looking for you. And it's never like a wimp that's looking for
Oh,
you.
yeah. No, it's not. No, it's the guy who turned into a man in 10th grade.
Yeah, it's the guy with a beard. Well, this particular guy, Ashley McClyment, he was a rockabilly and he had a gun rack on the back of his truck. He had a truck in high school, but you can't have guns in Canada. So his gun rack had like a chain, a baseball bat, like stuff, but not guns.
Weapons, though.
Yeah. And
those were his
tools. Looking for me for like weeks, and it was just diarrhea.
Yeah.
No, I take the long way around to my class.
For me,
they'd be like, "He's looking for you," and I'm like, "He's 6'3" and has a beard, and I'm still mostly a boy. I'm gonna go the long way. I'm gonna go the long way to class. I'm not Taylor here. He hit puberty in like the 6th grade or something.
Yeah,
like that.
We had
so hard.
Yeah, like we had guys who had like an apartment. Like there was men.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't me. It wasn't me.
I thankfully, I didn't ever have to deal with a meet me at the bike rack situation because you
were the guy.
I never wanted to meet. I never wanted.
Did you ever get roped in? Taylor, Johnny wants to meet me at the bike rack. Will you please come?
I did not.
No?
I avoided. I was a pacifist pussy. I did not do any put up your dukes action in high school, but I was large enough that nobody also wanted to fight me.
Didn't you also wrestle?
I did wrestle just in middle school, but I played hockey also, and so like those carry reputations of like, oh well, don't mess with the wrestling.
Taylor was a
hockey
terrifying 9th grader.
Yeah, I was a
don't
big
mess
9th
with
grader.
the 6 foot tall wrestling hockey player. That's a no brainer.
What you're looking at now is his 9th grade silhouette. There was no chance.
Dude, I've said it before. Like it was me and this other guy, Phil. We were the only people in middle school who were growing full beards, and he was a fucking weirdo, and people would bully him for it because it wasn't cool to be like an adult yet. And so I shaved meticulous. My dad taught me to shave at like 12 very early. And so I'd go in fully baby face because I didn't want to get mocked like Phil. And then I showed up in 9th grade and everyone's like, whoa, Steve's got like 5 facial hairs. And I'm like, oh, it's cool now, is it? Oh, dude, now it's cool? Okay.
Not only was I incredibly late to hit puberty, but I broke 100 pounds in 10th grade. Right, at 15 years old, I cracked triple digits.
In 7th grade, I wrestled at 140.
Not only that, but when puberty did hit, it trickled in so slowly. I remember it was on this show. Kyle said something that blew my mind. I was telling a story of how pubes grew in, how you had these like patches of crabgrass on either side that didn't bridge the middle. And Kyle's like, Woody describes a stage of puberty I never had. Like apparently normal people have puberty all at once, whereas mine leaked in. It was all.
Oh yeah, it was like waking up one morning when I was 11, just being like, "Whoa!" Like just like hair was growing like bamboo that night.
Yeah, I've never heard of Mickey Mouse ears merging in the middle. It's usually they start out near the base and then they spread out.
It goes that way. Not you.
Not
you had like a George Costanza head.
He had a shoehorn baldness on his dick.
My 15-year-old, my wife called me recently and she goes, "Oh my God, his friends, I won't say his name, but his friends were in a fight at the nearby high school and he didn't go. Thank God." And I'm like, wait, what happened? So I eventually get the story. One of his boys, some guy from the nearby high school, was hitting on his girlfriend. So he's like, "Come on, guys. Let's go and kick his ass." I don't know where they got a car from. I guess they got an Uber. So they went over and the guy who was there to like take care of the other school, my son's friend, he immediately gets rocked so hard that he has a seizure. So he's lying on his back after starting the fight, just like going,
This is the tough guy. Okay.
So I come home and like all the good dads do, I said to my son, why weren't you with your friends? Like, why didn't you go to that fight? You went to Subway and had a sandwich? And he goes, "What are you talking about? I don't even know her or what the fight was about. I would have been kicked off the baseball team. Do you want me to be a loser? Is that what you want?" I go, "You come from a long line of losers. You don't throw that away."
That's fair.
Is he going to get in the fight next time? I pray.
I hope so. I've always said to him, McKinnis's don't quit. We get fired.
Yeah, and you have Scottish ancestry. I always think of the Scottish as like a brawling sort of people. He has to keep that alive.
It took me a long time to realize that my dad wasn't yelling at me. He just yells. Like I must have been about 8, and he's in the. We were driving across country, so I think we were in Vancouver in the Rockies at the time, and he was out of gas. He ran out of gas, and my mother's like, "You stupid asshole! You can't even budget a fucking gas tank. It's got a lever. You can see it." and he is punching his driver. His name's Jimmy McInnes, James, and he's punching his own steering wheel as he drives, going, "You asshole, James! You asshole!" Furious at Jimmy McInnes himself. And as he's screaming, punching that steering wheel, I was like, "Oh, that's just how he expressed himself."
He's just furious at everything.
Where in the country are you from? Is it
He's
New
just
York?
a yeller. I was born in England. My parents are from Glasgow, and we moved to Canada when I was about 5, Ontario, Ottawa. And then I moved to Quebec when I was 18, Montreal, which I consider a different country. And then we moved to New York in my late 20s.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's not
So about half my life in America, but I'm known as Canadian, which is great. I'm fine with that.
You got the accent.
It's very, very.
Do you think I have a Canadian accent?
100%.
On some
Really?
words, you hit it. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like about?
About a little more. Yeah, not
Tried
as
a little
intense
too
as I
hard to
did,
make that
but
normal.
yeah.
I've had a few more beers and it'd be a boot.
I hear it when I go back. All my friends sound like leprechauns. They're like, "Fucking check out McInnes fucking strolling back from the States. He's got a fucking 6-pack of Coors Bank." What the fuck is Coors Banquet there, guy?
There, guy.
I'm sorry. I don't understand a word you're saying.
When you watched your dad like have a spaz out like that, because a lot of people will like be like, "Man, why's my dad so angry?" And then you'll see like your grandpa in a state like that, and he's like a level above. Was your grandfather even like obviously the full Scott? More intense?
Like he was evil. Like he would lose his temper and beat up his kids like he was Roy Jones in the ring. Like he would punch my uncles. My dad never got beat up because he always had good grades. But you know what's funny about my dad? He's got a boxer's nose because in Glasgow, student was like the N-word. It was the worst thing you could be. And I kind of get it when I see these students protesting right now and their encampments and stuff. I'm like, wow, you really are the lowest people there are. You're worse than abos. And
Wow,
that's you call them abos too. I thought I was the only one.
Well, we have a huge Aboriginal listenership.
Black and indigenous. Isn't that such a gay term?
I choose to hone
It is
in
a
on the
gay
groups that
term.
have no protection organizations around them, and that's one of them.
Go for
That and the
gypsies.
deaf.
So students are losers
Say
right
whatever
now.
you want about
Doing
them,
their
I don't
brand. But back when my dad was young in the 50s in Scotland, you do these things called O levels. There's a really good system. I wish we had it here, and they don't do it in Britain anymore.
Oh.
So at 14, you do your O levels. If you're smart, we're paying for you to go to college. If you're not, we're paying for you to get a trade. And they would separate the wheat from the chaff. And it didn't matter if you're rich or poor. If you're a dumb, smart guy, well, you can get a trade or you can just have your parents take care of you, whatever. We don't care. And if you're a smart, poor guy, you're going to private schools. So my dad was in the slums, but he had a private school uniform with the tie and everything. And they'd call him a student. And he'd have to fight every day. So he ended up being a great fighter. But his father would just beat the shit out of the ones who didn't get the scholarship at their O levels.
Jesus.
And like he would fight them like a man fights he'd be punching them down these marble steps at the age of 12. Just a violent, and he was a communist too, a violent communist piece of shit.
He was actually a communist, like a real deal.
The real deal. He was the head of like the Glasgow Communist Party or some shit.
That's so not what I picture when I think of Scotland. He had to have been a weirdo over there too, right?
Scotland, Canada, Ireland, anyone who's near a big guy, they are super lefty underdog. They're all socialist because they hate the cool big brother, like Elvis Presley's brother, if he had one, right? If you asked Elvis Presley's brother, "What are you about?" He'd be like, "Well, I don't wear blue suede shoes, and I'm not a hound dog." You'd be like, "Yeah, I get it. You're not Elvis, but who are you?" Like in Canada, we would write these like, "What does it mean to be Canadian?" And it was always like, "Well, I'm not a racist in the Klan, and I'm not an evangelical nut, and I'm not a big fat pig in a monster truck." And it was all America, America, America. So, you go to a Glasgow Celtics soccer match, and they're all holding up the Palestinian flag. Like, this isn't from October 7th. This is like 10 years ago. because they know that Palestine is the underdog and they're near the big dog. So they just blindly worship all underdogs. So yeah, all Scots are rabid socialist lefties, woke morons. Same with Ireland. You say the word Trump in Ireland, everyone has a heart attack. And same with Canada.
That's depressing. I knew Canada was like that, like
Ireland's
almost defining themselves in opposition to us. And I knew Ireland, you know, I know they don't care for England.
They weren't there in World War II. Okay.
I always pictured Scotland as like just being cool guys doing their own thing up there.
Yeah, I mean it's depressing because like Irish people are fucking funny and they're great drinkers, and the Scots, every single human being in Glasgow is fucking hilarious. Like Louis C.K., people would feel sorry for him in Glasgow because he's never made a good joke. It's sort of like if you go to Scandinavia, your wife becomes the ugliest woman in the world. If you go to Glasgow, you're the least funny person that has ever lived. I'm constantly like, it's like sparring with some fucking pros. Like I'm just like, okay, I gotta get funny.
Damn.
One time we were running for the bus, me and my gran, and we'd missed the stop, and my gran was fast enough to catch the bus. And the bus driver opens the door. He goes, "Just you keep going, hen. You're going to get downtown before I do." It's a random bus driver.
In the world of accents, they might have the funniest one. Them and Australians are up there. Like everything they say is funny.
Australians are good, but you know Scottish are peak.
I think you're right. I think
Scottish
do have
best
the
accents
ones
in the world are Scottish and Jamaican. I would love to hear a Jamaican guy and a Scottish guy in a heated argument. That would be like a waterfall. That would be
you could go to sleep to that at night.
Unfortunately, there's so little crossover with those groups.
Yeah.
Probably for their own good. That'd be a good podcast.
We drink whiskey. That's the name of the podcast, and they just discuss it the whole time. You got smoke drinking at whiskey, you got Babylon closing in on me, you know. Don't you get me started.
I would enjoy that. I gotta close this video. This guy losing his hand.
He's been auto playing over and over, huh?
He's just on a loop, over and over. I thought there was so much more keeping hands on.
No,
than that.
No, that's the second hand I've seen get cut off in like this week. I saw another video where the guy, a guy attacks this guy. They're having a fight. One's on a motorcycle, maybe one's on a car, and they've had some bullshit fender bender. I think they're both Asian, and they're having like a really shitty old man fight where nobody knows how. But then one dude pulls out a box cutter, and you know, a box cutter is just 1.5 inches, 2 inches. He starts hitting this guy with it, and I guess he hits enough of his wrist that his hand is dangling off by just tendon or something like that. Like he cuts his hand off with a fucking box cutter. And I guess the guy wasn't feeling it first, so he gets hit all over. He's just drenched in blood by the time it's over. So don't fight people with box cutters. I learned that this week too.
No,
who knew?
I'm looking at a picture of.
I didn't know that.
I'm looking at the carpal bones right now, and there is a space right above those two arm bones where you get it in the right spot, and you're good to go.
Yeah,
it must have been what happened to this gentleman at the mobile.
He wasn't a gentleman. I looked into it.
No, it was not. No, he was a machete-wielding wild man, I believe he was described.
Is that what they said? The machete-wielding.
That's what I'm calling him. Jesus.
Was that America? Is that
no? They were speaking. Well, they weren't speaking English, so who knows?
By the way, it wasn't mutual combat legally,
so there's no way to possibly know if they were in America or not.